It's like, I don't always want to be have to be considered the resilient person.
We have to remember we always have a choice. And it is our birthright, and it is our power in life that we remember we always have a choice. You can decide not to be reduced by them.
Have you ever been knocked down so hard you weren't sure how you could ever possibly get back up? Have you ever felt the weight of the world and wondered how to keep going with strength, dignity, and maybe even some hope? If you've asked yourself any questions like this week's conversation is for you. Welcome back to Life Happens with Barb and Michelle. We are so happy that you're here with us today. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Michelle.
How's it going?
It's good. I'm happy to be here today, too.
You're always happy to be in conversation together. But I feel like especially so, in continuation of us talking about women that we admire, women that have inspired us, people that have really taught us and motivated us and all of those good things. Today we're going to be talking about friend of the pod, someone we talk about basically every single episode anyways, Maya Angelou.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Which is one of your all-time favorite humans, authors, poets, teachers, leaders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
But we really dived into a lot of her work, her life. You've had some personal experiences with her, and I'm really excited to use her life's work to talk about resilience and hope, especially in difficult times, which we know life is always difficult, but I think a lot of us can relate to the feeling that the world that we live in is really, really hard. And how do we maintain a semblance of hope?
Yeah, and I do think that we do talk, I think we mentioned Maya Angelou
Probably you.
I do, yes.
I mean,
almost every episode, because there's some, nugget of her wisdom that inspires us, or that for me, you all know I'm the quote lady, Peaceful Barb, the quote lady. And so for me, these little nuggets of wisdom are not really little. They are so huge. And when we start to, kind of look at what these brilliant teachers and leaders and this is an extraordinary woman, Maya Angelou, what she actually has said and how she's lived her life, it's life-changing for us if we can just take one little piece of it and see how it can actually influence us, or how it could actually help us live our lives to the best of our ability.
Can I just say something really quickly about
sure,
that?
Yeah.
One of the things that you taught me growing up and even in your work that I really resonate with, especially now, is that back in the day when you were really deep in your practice of reading and learning traditions and teachers, you would often say that you were immersing yourself in, well, of course, instructional books like how to meditate and, the tools, but also you loved to read biographies because you liked to see and understand people's lived experiences, even if they were vastly different than yours. You could say, oh, if they went through this, I could do it, or they were able to face this challenge and somehow apply it to your life. And I think that's such a cool practice to, we all have different lived experiences and paths and complications in our lives, but to be able to find commonality through shared stories is not only just like a nice way to bring ourselves together in community, but also to pick out pieces of hope and resilience as fuel, especially during difficulties. So all of that to say,
Yes.
Props to you for instilling that within me and helping me to learn the importance of it.
Yeah.
That came out, right?
No, it came out perfectly. And I think that's another episode. I love that you said this, because I would love to have an episode on this, because, and very briefly, and then we get to talk about Maya, but very briefly, because I don't know, when I was going into treatment for bulimia 40 some years ago now, I thought something was wrong with me. And so as I got out of treatment and the deepest desire to stay in recovery and to learn and to grow and all the things that I had while I was 6 weeks in treatment, I thought I'm going to read all the books of all the people, all the biographies of all the people. And then I studied all the different religions, and I thought I'm going to learn, because I felt like they all had it made. No one could have had it as bad as I had it with, sexual abuse and trauma and all the things. addiction. So when I started reading these people, they all had lives just as bad as mine. I mean, I've read thousands of books in the past 40 some years of teachings and of mystics and masters and all of that. I have not read one book where they didn't have similar struggles, different occurrences, different things, but their lives were not easy. And it made me so at ease thinking, wow, their lives aren't perfect. I don't need to fix myself. I just need to learn and I need to grow and all the things. And so that's why it's so important. And Maya Angelou has been a pillar of that for me.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you've read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is her genius book. And it's really it's an autobiography, really. So just a little short thing, if you don't know a lot about her, she was sexually abused by the boyfriend of her mother. And for 5 years, when she was 7, so for 5 years, she never spoke. She never spoke a word.
Oh, didn't speak at all.
Didn't speak at all. And so in those 5 years, and not too long after the boyfriend sexually abused her, he was killed. So she's really, I mean, even though you think sexually abused are a good thing he's dead, it's still another trauma that she endured. So right after that, after he was killed, she stopped speaking. And so she became, it says in her autobiography, she became mute. And so that just, I have chills even saying it when I've been reading this forever, that just sent chills up. How does a young 5-year-old survive, and how does she do all of these things? So she immersed herself in literature. She immersed herself in books. And I kind of related to that in that when I said when I got out of treatment, I immersed myself in all the readings and all the teachings and all the books that I could find. So she immersed herself in literature, which we all know, how that turned out. She became the most decorated poet laureate, 50 honorary doctorates, and she became the most famous, in my humble opinion, poet ever to walk the face of the earth, especially, not especially, but as a woman for sure. And I think that we can learn so much from her. So I'm so happy we're going to delve into what are some of the words that she has left us with through her books, through her poetry, that we can use to live the best life that we want to live. And I had the honor of meeting her in 2013. She came to one of the temples in our community and she spoke, and she just is she died in 2014, so she was very frail.
Oh, I didn't realize it was right before.
Yeah, it was not too long before. So she is just as powerful in a wheelchair when I saw her and she spoke as you would imagine any human being to be. She is such a force for, as you said, Michelle, resilience. And we can do really anything that we set our minds to, or anything that we're not, succumbing to the fear and the anxiety and the lack of safety and all of the things that are happening, as you said, in our world today, that happen to us personally and collectively as a unit. So I'm really excited to delve into how she helps us see adversity and to be resilient and have the perseverance, and to know that, here's how I translated it. For me, she really taught me, after reading all of this, she didn't say these words, it's what I put to it, that no one, like, we are the authors of our own story. And so I'm not going to allow any sexual abuse that I had, anything that happened to me in my childhood, to write my story. I want to be the boss, as I say often on the podcast, of my own life. So I'm excited to delve into her story. And she's got a message that is it is unique to her, of course, but she speaks to everyone. And not just women, not just Black women. She speaks to every person walking the face of the earth, I feel. And so I'm excited to delve into that, so that we can kind of feel what message that she left us that we can use for our own, benefits of becoming truly our own best friend.
I love that. Yeah. Quick question before we get into a little bit of her work. What made her start to speak? Being literature?
In literature, yeah. She immersed herself into literature. And I don't know, I can't speak for her, but I believe when you immerse yourself into something that's feeding your soul or feeding your being or feeding your heart, you start to be able to gain that resilience and that strength. And I think that's one of the messages that she leaves us, that when something tragic happens to us in life, which all of us have our versions of tragedy that happens in our lives, we don't go through this life unscathed. You immerse yourself into something that ultimately ends up being saving your life.
Hmm.
And so I think she, obviously writing poetry and reading literature and everything, gave her the words, I think, worthy of herself to be able to speak, maybe. I know I'm using my
That makes
own
sense.
interpretation in the talks that she's given. But do you mind if I read just a little bit from her most famous poem?
Yes,
And
I was
still I
hoping you
rise.
would.
And so her most famous poem, we all know, Still I Rise. I just wanted to read some excerpts from it that I feel are so poignant and so strong and really speak to us today. Still I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders flailing down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air I rise. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bring the gifts that any ancestors gave me. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. So, just in the words that she chose for this poem, the idea of hatefulness, and do you want to see me broken?
Hmm.
I think as someone, I obviously can relate to her because I also suffered from sexual abuse as a child. And her words are so powerful because this is how we feel if you've endured any kind of real tragedy like this. We feel like we are broken. And then when you start to recover from that feeling of power and resilience and energy and all of the things that she brings to life in her poetry and in her life, we're not broken. But did you want to see me that way? Is that what you were trying to do to me? So it's so powerful
What is the piece that stands out the most to you
in her work.
in reading that?
In reading that, I think it's that I thought I was broken. And I thought, I felt like because of the life that happened to me, both parents alcoholics and the abuse and all that, I thought that there was something wrong with me. And I thought that I was broken and I had to fix myself. As I said, I went into treatment to try to fix myself. And what you discover in the process of thinking that you have to fix yourself and change and get to be a different version of who you really already are from the inside out, you discover that the hatefulness and the words that she used, the hatefulness and the bitterness and the brokenness are really what was put upon us, but we aren't what other people did to us, and we aren't what we think in the mind we are. Like there's a whole nother person that we are from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, when you get traumatized like that, you do feel broken. I mean, all your boundaries have been crossed and everything in life is turned upside down. This is not what's supposed to happen. She was 5 years old. This is not what's supposed to happen. In life, we think as a child that you're being taken care of and that you're being looked after, and nothing like that's ever going to happen to you. So when that happens, it's like your whole world is turned upside down. So you have to really piece through all of that. And I think in Maya's work, and when you read some of the quotes that have changed my life that we use here in the podcast often, when you know better, you do better. So those ideas, what does she mean by that? Well, I think she's also speaking to all the people out there that do harm, that are hateful, that do want to break you, because that happens in the world today. We see that happening in our lives. We don't know what to think anymore. Sometimes we don't know who to trust anymore. And so I think when trustworthiness goes away, we truly start to question everything. So instead of her continuing, she turned inward to start questioning through her literature. But instead of turning all of that hatefulness and that brokenness and all those things on herself, instead of taking it on as truth for her, she turned it around. And it's the hatefulness that's out there. It's the people out there that have broken her and that think she is broken. So it's all turned around to what the truth of it really is, because that's not who she is. So I think in my parallel life, kind of, I don't ever want to say that I'm parallel living with Maya Angelou, but when I look at some of the similarities, but then I also look at all of the people in the world, everyone has their thing that has been done to them to varying degrees. None of us are here to judge and none of us are here to compare. We're here to say, yes, there have been times in life, all of us have probably felt like we've been broken or brought to our knees, or we've been in a place where, oh my gosh, this can't be who I am, but it is who I am. So you have to navigate that whole, the thoughts in the mind that are telling us, well, you are that, Barb, you are broken. Now what? So that's, I think, and still I rise. Like there's always the end of the story is, and still I rise, no matter what is happening, even at going to be 70 this year, going through the divorce after 33 years. I thought I'd kind of gone through all the real drastic hardships in life. To me, a divorce is one of those after 33 years, but still I rise. I remember during the divorce thinking, and still I rise. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew that was going to be the outcome, and still I rise. So I think those are the messages in that poem, but also the messages in her whole life.
Yeah. I'm curious, there's a lot of conversation lately about the topic of resilience and how do I want to say this? That, we're constantly asked to be resilient in our lives and, in the world overall when so many bad things are happening collectively and personally. And, it's like, okay, just be resilient, rise up against, when they go low, we go like high, all of that. What do you think about, is there any thoughts that you have about resilience in the sense of not bypassing what's happening, but what would be the right word? Where maybe it's a Band-Aid?
So that's a great question.
Because I've seen a lot of people, especially that come from Black women that I know in real life, but also follow on social media, who have felt a little exhausted by the nudge to continue to be resilient. It's like we've been resilient all along. And again, I'm speaking from my own white woman experience, so I don't have that lived experience. But I also know that just in the world in general, sometimes it's like, you're asking me to keep, all this just happened, and now you're telling me that I gotta just keep on keeping on. Like, when is it enough? Or, no, I want to get in the mud and lay with the pigs or whatever, like.
So wild.
Well, I just think sometimes we feel like,
mud and lay with the pigs.
Well,
you just want to relax.
Came to my mind.
You want to not have to feel,
or not even relax, but like, no, all this bad stuff. Sometimes I want to, when they go low, I want to go lower.
See, and I think I
don't want to go. I don't want to rise. I want to dig.
This is such a great conversation, and I didn't know that this is the direction it was going to go. That's why we really, of course we talk all the time, but we really, this is real time when we just have these discussions like this. And so I believe there's such a strong misunderstanding when they go low, we go high. Such a strong misunderstanding about that. It doesn't mean that we bypass.
Well, that's my question.
No, and it doesn't also mean that okay, they're going low. We're not going to steep to their lowness. We're just going to keep on keeping on. No, I believe what that meant is when they go low, we go higher. We go deeper. We put our feet in more. We look at ways that we have to counteract the lowness, but it doesn't mean we go to their level in terms of how. I believe you
don't match the energy.
No, you don't match the energy at all. I don't believe that was what was being said.
I'm not saying that either, but
I don't know. Let me just finish. What I believe is, and that's why I love, and still I rise. I use that so often in my life because there are so many times when I don't feel like rising, like you were saying.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, I don't feel like rising, but what's the alternative? I think that's
laying with the pigs.
No, it's not the alternative. You can do that for a moment. Are you going to lay with the pigs for the rest of your life?
No, but I think sometimes we need the permission to be like, fine, you lay with the pigs for the next 2 days.
Of course you can. No one has the power to tell us what to do or name who we are. We already know that. So of course
or maybe
we can.
Is resilience letting yourself lay with the pigs?
Yes. because it doesn't name who you are. Of course, when I was in my divorce, what did I do? I was crying one day and you walked in the door and you asked me why I was crying. And I said, because I'm going to be divorced twice. And you laughed at me. Sometimes,
Nicely.
sometimes we have to just live in that poor me or, oh my gosh, this is all too much. I think I said that to you often. I'm a product of the 60s. I'm a 60s girl, racial justice, civil rights, women's rights, all the rights were going strong in the 60s and the early 70s and stuff. So I was a part of all that. Well, here I am going to be 70 years old and I'm still going strong with all the rights. And so what I've discovered, and I think Maya has helped me do that in her writings and her reading and her life, her lived experience has helped me to see I'm always going to be rising. There's never going to be a time in life where I'm not asked and called upon to rise up, whatever that looks like. Rise up out of, I'm too tired to get out of bed and I don't feel like meditating. That happens after 40 some years. I rise up. Nope. I rise up. Go get in your chair and meditate, Barb. It's as simple as that. And it's as vast as what's happening today. I mean, look, I'll bring it up. The Epstein files and what's happening with sexual abuse of children and that. I was sexually abused as a child. It's making me crazy that this could be the society that we live in. It's making me every day. And every day I wake up, I sit in my practice, I do the things and I'm going to rise up. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but I know that I'm not going to do nothing, or I know that I'm going to rise. And I like it that you can say, and still I rise, because there is no definition of what that means. It could mean still I rise, I get up out of my chair and go to work. And still I rise, I make breakfast for you in the morning, or I feed Charlotte. And still I rise means I'm going to get in my car and go to my meeting. It could be that, or it could be bigger, as I said. So I feel like we can't, I feel like it's really prudent upon us to understand that we are our own individual selves. And the idea of rising or the idea of being called to whatever it is that we're meant to be doing in our lives is very personal and it's very particular. And it's up to us what we decide to do. And for me, that means, and still I rise. If I don't want to get out of bed, I'm going to rise up and get out of bed and then do what the next right action is, whatever that might be.
Because I do play devil's advocate with you on this show and in real life, what do you say about, again, trying to think of how to frame it, like, is there any toxic undertones of saying just push through because you got to push through?
Say that again?
Like you're saying, I got to get up and keep going. Where is the space for, no, maybe you need to rest?
Definitely there. That's what I'm trying to say. You said that perfectly. There's no, like,
I'm not saying
Yeah,
that you're not
definitely.
saying that. I'm thinking of listening to what you're saying and what listeners and viewers might think, oh, she's telling me I got to just go and go and go.
No.
So I'm just
Thank you.
opening that space up for, that's not totally what you're saying.
No.
And I think there is interpretations of these words where you get beat down, you get beat down, you get beat down, and you got to be the bigger person. Or I was told a lot to be the bigger person.
I know your
growing
dad said that quite a bit. I remember that. He told me that
to
Michelle has to
people.
be the bigger
And so
person.
it's like, at some point you're like, don't tell me. Sometimes I just want to be the person that's not the bigger person,
Yeah.
or the one that's just, that just lets me be, not rising, maybe not even laying with the pigs, but just let me be. And I think that's my point, is like, when I listen to you reading the parts of Still I Rise, what struck me, at least in this moment or this period of my life, where it's like, man, wouldn't it be nice? And I know that this is unrealistic because this isn't the world that we live in and things are difficult, where we're not always having to rise from something awful, where we're not feeling like, oh, I gotta go, like, where I could just be me and just be. And so I'm just wondering, where is the space, or how do we balance it all, where maybe there's not so much focus on the resilience of the bad, but like recentering who we are as what's good in the moment. So we're not giving so much power or priority of the perpetrators or the toxicity or the negativity in our lives when there is so much more to who we are and to our life story and our path than just these one stories. Like you always say, no one has the power to name who you are. I don't know if that was all convoluted, but I think that's where it gets sticky for me, where it's like I don't always want to be have to be considered the resilient person.
Yeah, and you don't have to be. Who said you had to be? And I think that
Well, you said we have to get up and rise.
okay.
I'm just saying that's how sometimes someone like with my twisted brain would say, well, I don't want to.
I get it. And you don't have to. And you don't have to. And I think one of her quotes that I love, you may not control all the events that happen to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to also extend that to the external world. We can't control anything out there. We can't control the events that happen to us. But you can decide. You can decide. I think we have to remember we always have a choice. And it is our birthright and it is our power in life that we remember we always have a choice. You can decide not to be reduced by them.
I like that.
So this quote, you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them.
That speaks to me.
Yes. And so I think that
that to me is resiliency.
It's 100% resiliency. So it's not just one thing. I think that that's the mistake we make. We hear one thing, so there's all those things. You can't just take one thing and extrapolate it into thinking that it applies to everything.
Well, we're very black and white thinkers, and it's great.
And we need to not be. Yes,
Life
that is your
gray.
thing. And you said that might be the title of your next book. So
wow.
I remember you said that in one of the episodes.
You heard it here first.
So I think that we have to, and I think that that's why she talks a lot about having the relationship with yourself. That, she talks about that, be the rainbow in someone else's clouds. That's another famous quote of hers. But then before that quote, she talks a lot about you got to be the rainbow in your own clouds, in your own self. She's always talking about your own self-care, your own self-love, your being your best friend so that you know what? I don't feel like getting out of bed today. And this happened to me recently. What happens, it's not 40 some years. It's happened more than once. But recently, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was tired. I didn't want to get out of bed. And so I said, you know what? You're going to meditate in bed today. And I rarely meditate in bed. You're going to meditate in bed today. It's like, I have the choice. No one can tell me what to do. And 99% of the time we're amongst our own self. No one is even watching us anyway. No one's even going to know what we're thinking. No one is going to know how we're acting. So why do I think it matters to anybody or they give a damn if I meditate in bed or out of bed? So it's kind of like you start to learn, wait a minute, I am the boss of my own life. I'm making this choice today and I'm good with it. Mm-hmm. As you said, I'm making this choice today. I'm rising and I'm rising. So that is in my thinking and in Maya's words to me that I am interpreting, that is rising because I'm taking the power to do what is in my best interest in this moment. That is rising. I'm making a choice. I'm taking an action. If you read Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning, same thing, in a concentration camp. And he rose. He was constantly rising in a concentration camp.
Because he decided.
Because he decided.
He was not going to be reduced by the events.
Exactly. And that's what we have to do. And I finally, when I thought about that, I'm standing up for racial justice and all the things in the 60s and early 70s, and now I'm doing it again in 2020, whatever. I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I'm doing it again. The work is never over, but it doesn't mean we just work and work and work until we're dead.
Right.
We do have to also find the joy. So we have to find the joy in the work, or we have to the joy for me in the work is I feel so passionately about my work. I love it to my core.
Right.
Do I love it to my core that I want it to kill me? No. Okay. Well, that's what I mean. No. You're going to, because I believe that the body knows, the body is very important, which I've learned from being in treatment and then in recovery all these years. So I have to take care of my body. Right. I didn't used to think that way in the 60s. And I thought, just work until I'm done.
Right.
I don't believe that anymore, to answer your long-winded way to answer your question, that if I don't want to get out of bed and I feel like I want to stay in bed, I'll make the choice to stay in bed, but I'm not going to stay in bed. It's not going to be my life. It's a piece of my life that I'm choosing to do to take care of myself.
I think what's really interesting, and you touched on this, and I think this is could be a whole nother conversation as well, is that context is everything when we're talking about these quotes. And I think we live in such a fast-paced culture and world where you want to have like a quote that goes viral and it's, you know, be a rainbow in someone else's cloud, which is a lovely sentiment. But I never actually had taken the time to, maybe I haven't read the whole poem or the whole context of that one quote of hers, where there's so much more to it, where she talks about, you know, whatever the self-care that comes along with it, where, you know, the clickbaitiness of something like that can be construed as like toxic positivity or, you know, people pleasing or overgiving. And so I like this conversation of maybe breaking down some of these, you know, renowned quotes or things that we lean on with the context of there's so much more. I think context is everything. You know, there's so many different meanings of what it means to be resilient. Yes, still you rise, but also you're not reduced by the actions, and that's resiliency too. So I just like, we love to redefine words and phrases, but I think giving context to some of these quotes so that they're like tangible in our lives, but also not perpetuating like toxic norms of like just keep on keeping on, or, you know, be the bigger person, like what I was told as a kid, or, you know, be nicer to the person that's being mean to you. Like all of that stuff that I think we've heard and kind of
Turn the other cheek.
is planted within us for so many years. And now it's like, okay, like what actually were these people saying, and what actually can we do that can bring maybe a better sense of balance or mutual respect?
You know, Michelle, I think a good barometer for me has been, because I did not like myself. I did not respect myself. I didn't think I mattered. I've talked about that so much before going into treatment. I think the barometer for me is a very authentic teacher, book, autobiography, whatever, that really resonates with me as someone who always puts the care and the love for yourself first. They always go back to, you have to love yourself first. You can't, how can I love you in the way that I'm meant to be loving you? We did an episode on codependency, without being a codependent, without doing all the, you know, the things that are not in your best interest or mine. How can I do any of that if I don't even understand myself and my feelings and my needs and my wants and my relationship with myself? The foundation of, I think the foundation of my life and the foundation of life in general for all people is the relationship you have with yourself, is the foundation of every other relationship you're going to have in life. And that means with people, that means with the universe, that means with nature, that means with dogs, that means with animals, that means with everything. The relationship we have with ourselves
With the pigs.
is with the pigs. So I think anyone that I'm reading that doesn't, here's what I look for. I look for that component, that you have to have a relationship with yourself and love yourself with all the flaws, with all the things or all the mistakes or all the things that we think that we're doing wrong. You have to understand that at your core, you have to love yourself completely. So then the next thing I look for is, okay, now are they giving back? I mean,
Right.
that's what she's done. Her ancestors,
You do the work and then you
she believes
pay it
her
forward.
ancestors, you know, were the shoulders that she stood on to rise. I'm just
Keep
paraphrasing
lifting
her book.
You put the ladder down to lift people up.
Exactly. So then you give back. And I feel like the work that we do, the work we run a nonprofit, Peace of Mind, Peace of Life, and helping people with mental wellness and just live the best life that they can from the inside out. It's our way. It's for sure mine, because I'm older than you are, and yours as well now as you're younger, but it's like a way of giving back. How can I can't believe I'm in the situation that I'm in, that I'm actually sitting here when 40 some years ago I thought I was going to die, and I was so messed up and had no idea who I was or what I was doing. So it's almost like we can be an example to give back and give whatever help that we're being called to do. So those are the parameters that I look for, but it has to start. I couldn't even have imagined that I could even be talking like this before I even understood that I was having a relationship with myself. I didn't like myself. I didn't even want to think that I existed. I thought everything that I did was what mattered. So
That makes sense.
and I think that answers your question, that no, it is not to keep, it's not a bypassing. It's not any of that. It's you deciding and you choosing and you knowing what is the right thing for you, and then you giving back, or then you lending a hand, or like you said, putting the ladder down and not being defeated. I think there's another quote of hers that I wrote down. We may encounter defeats, but we must not be defeated.
Right. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
may encounter defeats. We're going to.
Yeah.
As you said, you just, how long am I going to have to keep doing that?
It
And
takes what it
it
takes.
takes what it takes.
I like
So
that. And I really liked this conversation about resilience and reframing it and what it really looks like, especially in times like these. So thank you, Mom, for sharing all of that and going there with us today.
I think one of the last things I wanted to say about Maya Angelou, her quotes have been, as you said, I like what you said, though, you kind of sometimes need to know the front story before you start imagining what the backstory is of what she's trying to say. So it matters to really do a little. If you like something of hers, go a little bit deeper and see what it is and try to get a really good feeling and a visual of what she's saying. But I think some of it is just what it is. When people show you who they are, believe them. It's kind of those are the things. Or every storm runs out of rain. That has saved my life. It's saved my life. Every storm run. It's so simple, but it has saved my life. I thought that is true. Storms don't last forever. There is nothing is everything is impermanent. Nothing is permanent except for death. So just you start to think like that. And I guess that's what this whole episode, I think, for me has been about. How can we start to think about being that resilient, still I rise, every storm runs out of rain, because there is no permanence in life except for when we die. So we can always change our mind. We can always stop. Something's not going right during the day. We can stop. We can take a few deep breaths and we can begin again. Like there's always that choice and there's always that example. And she is one of those people in my life for me.
I love
And
that.
so I've loved this conversation too. I hope it made sense for everyone, because I feel like
Let us know in the
I
comments.
got a little bit
No, I
riled
loved
up. But
it.
I think you have, in the beginning you were telling me maybe you had a little quote to read of hers, or you had something that you wanted to share, or maybe you already did, because I
Yeah, I
feel like
shared
I've been
it.
so wrapped up with myself.
But I like that one that you said. You may not control the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. I think that's a great sentiment to leave on and to just marinate in, especially within this world that we live in right now. So thank you, Mom, and thank you, Dr. Maya Angelou, for your words and wisdom and inspiration. And thank you so much, all, for being with us again this week. We're so grateful to have these conversations with you, and we'll chat with you next week.